Maureen Steele, and Ann Vandersteel all went into the state of Colorado to file a petition for redress of grievances. Tina Peters actually also signed this petition. In fact, she actually had exculpatory evidence related to the election fraud that was outlined in the petition that was not allowed to go into the court. The petition was not brought to the floor, and as a result, Tina Peters was unlawfully imprisoned. My father, Dale Richardson, was actually tortured in the state of Colorado to suppress his evidence of treason against the United States, which was based on improper engineering controls which allowed for the spread of the COVID-19 virus, which was likewise created at Wuhan by Peter Daszak and the EcoHealth Alliance with the pathogen, which were handed over to the Chinese by the Winnipeg Biolabs. This created the circumstances for widespread election fraud. My father, Dale, and I are friends of Tina Peters, who has been politically persecuted for standing up for the liberty of all Americans. And she, as a sister in Christ, has been persecuted like I have for standing up for the liberty of all people. In the state of Colorado, women and Christians are being persecuted on monumental levels, and I'm calling for everyone to stand up for Tina Peters in every way possible, including using the Karis Project action plan to compel the state government to put the petition for redress of grievance to the floor so that Tina Peters can petition before the state house that belongs to the people. And if Colorado continues to deny a Republican form of government, we will implore that Congress and President Donald J. Trump initiate Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, which guarantees a Republican form of government, to the states and use that just power to intervene and provide what the Constitution has ordained. The time is upon us to come together and stand united as people and let the world know that we stand together to preserve this perfect union for all Americans and our posterity. That is why, y'all already know, I'm going to leave you with my favorite quote. The greatest want of the world is the want of men. Men who cannot be bought or sold. Men who in their inmost souls are true and honest. Men who do not fear to call sin by its right name. Men whose conscience is as true to duty as needle to the pole. Men who will stand for the right, though the heavens may fall. Ciao, guys.
Hello, everybody. Sorry, welcome to the Karis Project podcast on America Rising. And we're here talking about being Tina Peters. And we're here with Christine Reagan, who is from Act for America, the grassroots director, and of course, my daughter, the host, Kaysha. And I'll let you do the introduction, Kaysha. What?
Yeah, hello. Hey, everybody. Don't mind me. I'm just a little bit sick, so don't think that weaken my voice. I just no enthusiasm. It's just a little bit of sickness. But yeah, we're delighted we have Christine Reagan today. She's a dynamic and transformative force in conservative grassroots activism. She's notably serving as the communications and grassroots director for for America, the nation's premier grassroots movement, with 5 million followers, 500,000 dedicated activists, and 1,200 plus chapters across the country. Reagan has played a pivotal role in the passage for over 270 bills, blocking thousands of bad bills, and building an activist presence in 98% of U.S. counties. Under her leadership, Act for America has achieved a record-breaking 238 plus million real lawmaker direct actions through membership and outreach efforts in 3 years, turning patriots into lobbyists as a real republic. And for Christine Reagan, life is politics, a manifestation of belief systems in the world around us. And she urges the faith community to be doers of the word, not just hearers, actively working to save cities, states, and nations from ruin. Her rallying cry is a call to action. It's time to take back every inch of ground lost, to end our bench warming days, to get into the race before us, and to get to work because the hour is late. Married for 22 years, Christine and Robert are proud parents of 2 grown daughters and 1 young homeschool daughter and 4 grandchildren, which is really awesome to me, everything that I heard there, because we're all about, helping the fatherless, the widow, and the oppressed, as Isaiah 58 says, and also very much about family and unity. So, thank you for joining us today, Christine. How are you doing?
Oh, my pleasure. Great. We always say we're always great. We have so many wonderful people that we work with that encourage us every day. We are really fortunate. And when you say that I'm a pivotal role, it's really the people that are playing that pivotal role in the achievements that Act for America has managed to accomplish. And it's really unfortunate today. We're still dealing with what is referred to as a shocking disconnect in our circles. And that is the idea that in Republican circles, not the left, we confuse attending lectures, monthly meetings, party meetings, eating the rubber chicken at the conventions, big shows like CPAC and Turning Point, and even watching the news. We have a lot of these things that we consider getting educated or informed as a form of action. And the disconnect is in that we are a representative republic. And then we find ourselves getting very frustrated with the circumstances that we're surrounded with. And somehow we think our lawmakers are supposed to be mind readers. And the disconnect comes from the fact that we don't think about picking up the phone and sending a basic email, asking a local rep to go to coffee to talk about something going on in their community. Pastors are cowarding they're not speaking about the issues locally at the state, the federal level, at the pulpit. We're all of us are called to be salt and light by Yeshua, by Jesus himself. And salt and light is not something that is sometimes on and most of the time off. Salt and light is curative. Light is penetrating. It's always active. It's always applying itself, right? But we tend to, that's that whole thing that Christ, don't cover your lamp. We're supposed to be light all the time. We are to be salt all the time. Otherwise, we are to be trodden under. We are good for nothing. And a representative republic is designed that people represent their values. But, so we can't have a representative republic if we're not representing ourselves. That's the bottom line. And so at Act for America, we actually just crossed a huge milestone with 300 million real actions, real emails, phone calls, what I call town hall social media posts, especially on X. X is open for business. Once Twitter, this is the #1 platform for political influence. So, and this type of issue that we're talking about with Tina Peters, we need to, yes, inform one another. Like your presentation at the beginning of this was a really great summary of where we're at, where our power lies, where are our avenues of redress. If we get blocked in Colorado ultimately and they won't do what's right, that we have the ability to continue to work up the chain as a representative republic and start calling for federal relief. And I know that the Trump administration is watching the case closely. They've made their statement to the governor of Colorado. They have an expectation that has been voiced. They have essentially been put on public notice, which is an important piece of this whole thing. But what I fear is not happening, which I'm hoping that together all of us are going to start to address, is that we need to start representing our voice and demanding action by not only the governor, but the legislature in Colorado. And so understanding the disconnect that needs to be addressed in our nation and meeting that with a tech tool that solves a lot of the hurdles and obstructions that we face in grassroots today, which is time, energy, right? And just creating an easy tool to make it part of our daily habits. So the tech tool that we have, it literally takes you a half a minute or less. The first time will take you a half a minute to fill out your information, and then it's autofill from then on out with every campaign, every action that we take together. So we have on actforamerica.org, if you scan over to Act Now and you do Act Now states and you select Colorado. This right now is a campaign just for Colorado so that the legislature doesn't throw out every single email that hits their inbox. Because especially in a state like Colorado, they don't want to hear from out-of-staters. But we can all social media pressure Colorado from the outside. But for Colorado citizens, you click on that free Tina Peters. It's a real simple header so that you know exactly that you're on the right one. And this is calling for some very specific actions from the governor, and it notes his power. And we note the committees that have the power to start doing hearings and investigation and delivering to us, the outcome that we're all after together. And this is the thing, every single email, every single phone call, each of those count as 1,000 constituents. That's a very powerful thing because we have an election coming up, right, in 2026. It's really, these days, it's around the corner. And this is one of those hot button issues that with enough people sending those emails and making those phone calls, which is very, very important. They're very afraid of these phone calls. It's much more personal than the email is. You're sending a message that you represent 1,000 couch potatoes. If you do email and a phone call, you're 2,000 couch potatoes. And those numbers really add up. And then they start realizing, okay, this represents 20% of my voter base in my district, 30% of my voter base. They start adding those numbers up and they realize that I either have to take a stand on this or at the very least abstain.
Yeah.
And not, you know what I mean? And abstain in a deep blue area is a big win for us. It forces them back on their heels and allows at least a few Republicans and those that have a bipartisan concern for justice. There are a few of them out there, in fairness, independents, that with enough numbers will be encouraged to come and stand beside us. And even if ideologically they disagree, for the sake of elections right now, this is just our way of forcing an issue to the floor, to the committees. And it's putting them on public notice. So the campaign is written strategically so that they cannot claim ignorance on those really important facts, Kaysha, some of them that you outlined in the presentation earlier. So these are all very strategic, yes, grassroots, but strategic, politically influential language and tactics that we're just delivering to you to do in 30 seconds or less, but you're doing something very important for us because then I can give to Kaysha or whoever is going to be on the front lines to speak in front of these committees or to go before the legislature to force this to be agendized and discussed at the very least, and to hold in their hand the petition also saying, I hold in my hand 100,000 Colorado citizens that are demanding action, that are demanding justice, because really Tina Peters could be any of us. And we really need to take this personal when we see an injustice like this, because this could be any one of us. She came across some very serious election fraud indicators. And even if she was mistaken, we would have wanted anybody to be as bold as she was in saying, what have I uncovered? What does this really mean? Let's do the auditing. Let's do the forensic. Let's understand this. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. We would hope that the state of Colorado would have heard her and explored everything and exhausted all effort to see if it was true or not. And at the end of the day, been happy to go through the exercise and be able to confidently say, nope, this is a misunderstanding. And, we have a secure election. But they didn't do that, did they? They wanted to silence her. They persecuted her.
Yes, they did. And like I said, I was being held in Colorado at the same time that they were investigating her. They actually kicked me out and blocked all the information that I was trying to submit in the federal district courts in Colorado. I went all the way up to the Supreme Court and so forth. And they then sent me back to Canada after I was strapped to a bed and drugged against my will to shut me up. And they knew this. And then they arrested her. And when I found that out, I was very angry because I knew exactly what was going on. And so Tina signed that petition for redress of grievances, which is her right under the Colorado Constitution and under the First Amendment. They have all the evidence that they refuse to put into the court in there, and also evidence from Maureen Steele to demonstrate that there was corruption in the Colorado courts. And I had evidence that there was corruption in the district courts in Colorado that were working against not only the interests of Colorado, but in the interests of the United States of America. And then my daughter was also grabbed in Colorado, and somebody tried to do her serious harm to also shut her up related to this case. And so you had all of this information that was there, and they knew full well, and Senator Mark Baisley took it, you saw it in the video, and he took it, and they did not read it in, because when somebody files a petition for redress of grievances under the Constitution, they have an obligation, because I looked it up in the legislative procedures for the American legislative assemblies, and this goes all the way back to when they wrote the Constitution. They're supposed to read it in and then decide what happens. And the people are the ones who dictate how urgent it is. And with what she brought forward and everything that was brought forward, it was urgent. But people are trying to protect themselves. So this is why the people have to then tell them, not ask, but tell them what that they're going to honor their constitutional rights, or there's the door. Because Tina Peters had that information before she went to prison. They knew that the court was corrupt, and so said, so done, right? They have a big obligation and responsibility to deal with this.
See, and the really frightening thing is that we had a Department of Justice that they knew that that this would never go farther under the last administration, the Biden administration, and that Department of Justice. They had no fear, and they answered. They were, this is total defiance against the people, and people need to really grab hold of this. It's funny because everybody wants to say that the West Coast is totally lost. And I say, well, you got to include Colorado. And in fact, in some ways, Colorado has become even more radicalized than even a Portland, Oregon, or King County, Seattle, Washington. And Sacramento, almost like the stealth communist ground. It didn't used to be this way, but we've seen such a rapid transformation of Colorado. And this is another thing that really needs to be heard from folks, is that we have allowed, and it's like what I'm dealing with in San Diego County, we have a movement called Reclaim San Diego, because up until 20 some years ago, we were a staunch, deep red conservative county. And at some point, we got to disconnect. And I know the weather's great. We love playing tennis and golf all day long, every day. But we just literally stopped seeking after government jobs that are critical, election clerks and recorders and every local elected seat, your supervisor seats. They determine the methods of your elections. They determine so many things that affect us immediately. And we just simply vacated all of these critical institutions and places of power. And that's what's happened in Colorado, is that at some point conservatives backed off, just stopped pursuing, burned out, who knows what it is. But folks, we literally have to get back in the game. We should never have one single seat left uncontested. And so, yes, the West Coast and Colorado, you'll see a lot of this where what is supposed to be the conservatives and the Republican Party, we're not working very hard in blue states. And we have a lot of questionable leadership amongst the conservative party members that are not fighting for us. And it's going to take grassroots at every level, not just, well, we got to do this piece because this is us holding government accountable only through grassroots, especially where we can't get where they're defying and ignoring and turning a deaf ear to us. Grassroots win power in numbers, increasing numbers, where we bring all of our friends and family in and say, you play such a critical role in fixing this problem, and grassroots works. And then we also have to look at the political side and make sure we're electing, especially in our viewpoint, godly people that are held to account by a higher authority than even the people, that are held accountable by God, by our Holy Scripture. And we can call them out and we can sit down with them privately and say, I'm really concerned, Brother Joe, let's talk about this vote on the floor, or that you abstained, or I don't feel you're fighting for us. What's happening? What's the pressure? I helped elect you. I helped campaign for you because I believed you're going to fight for us. What's going on with you? What can we do? We can hold each other more accountable when they're, in our camp, so to speak. These people are not accountable to us right now, but it's mainly, honestly, because they're not hearing from us in droves. It's not enough to show up and do podcasts to expose them. It's not enough to do to talk at these problems. It's simply not. We have to have this peace. We can no longer accept for ourselves this disconnect with the grassroots. From diapers to grave, this is all the left does. And if you guys don't realize it, in Colorado, you have hundreds of millions of dollars being thrown at Colorado to hold them now and turn you deep blue. And it's city by city, and it's county by county, right? And all they do is make phone calls and send emails, and they show up at those meetings, right? A little bit lesser numbers showing up, but they show up. And yes, some of them are paid, but some of them are just super devoted, and because they understand this piece works. They do not have, on the left, name one conference that's similar to CPAC that they run every year.
They don't.
They don't put money into CPAC. They don't have turning point massive conventions. We like this because we like the camaraderie, we like the community, and that's great. But we better get to the real work at some point. They don't waste time with this stuff. This is why Act for America is on the target list for Media Matters, because we're in this space and we're one of the very few with any sort of size and capacity. 98% of U.S. counties have Act for America activists that are clicking on these campaigns and advocating. Essentially, what we do is we become citizen lobbyists, and that is the real ticket. With I won't name organizations, but we have the who's who of conservative organizations. They are think tanks. They are education oriented. Occasionally, they'll have a campaign that you can click on and send. Most of the time, it's a petition that doesn't collect an address, which means that petition is data gathering. It is not going to representatives. It cannot even be presented to them as a way of lobbying them. And then the largest of these has a lobbyist paid in only 15 states, the last I checked. That means that most of the country doesn't even have a direct one person interfacing with your lawmakers to affect policy. But that doesn't matter, because when you have a powerful citizen direct lobbyist, we are voters. Our voice counts far greater than any paid lobbyist could. And so when we do that, and then as citizen activists, they volunteer to go in and meet with these representatives, which we need to start figuring out that piece together. Who's going to interface with your legislators in Colorado and be able to walk that petition and say, look, I know that you received 500,000 emails this week, right? That's power, because suddenly you turn your people that are interfacing with them as they are liaisons to the massive grassroots groundswell that's happening. That's a real movement. And that's what we need for Tina. She deserves the support, just like the J6ers. She's persecuted just like these J6ers. And right now, Trump is trying to figure out a way to give her relief and get her out of jail. And if we prove through grassroots, if we work together and we give these petitions directly to the DOJ, showing how many people are crying out directly in Colorado, then we have a chance of getting intervention from the Fed.
I gave it to the DOJ. I gave the information, like the petition for redress of grievance that had the information from Tina Peters in Colorado. I gave it to Senator Rand Paul and also the DOJ when I was in Washington a couple weeks back. They have this information. It's like these people it's about people just acting on it. They have
right. And now, right. And they need the numbers. It just all comes together. It's this synergy that, and just this silly missing piece that people do not realize. It's like the most important piece. This is why we've become the action arm for Freedom Caucus, the Senate steering committee, because they're realizing that this piece is missing, and Act for America can fulfill that. Everyone is Act for America, by the way. Every like-minded group, affiliated group, doesn't matter. You're a solo activist. This is a product of the people. It's all of us together that make this magic happen. So yeah, you delivered that, and that's really important piece. And now they need to get the volumes of people voicing this.
Yes.
Right.
Because
when it is,
when they sent this in, because Colorado got it on April 9th of 2024 when they went there. I went in Alberta with a group of people to deliver basically the same information to the province of Alberta on April 12th, the same week. The complete difference between when they just walked in and strolled in and they shut us at the door. They wanted to arrest us, and we were there for about 20 minutes until they called the sergeant at arms. And when the sergeant at arms came, I said, you can take custody of these documents because you report to the speaker and you're going to take them. And we filmed it. He took it and everybody was there, but they were the differences on how they're shutting us out from our government in Canada as opposed to the States. You don't want this coming down. And when I did that, people began to reach out to me from all over Canada and the United States. And then they came in, they put the kibosh down. They clamped that down, the deep state. And so what needs to be done is, because we have petitions in Michigan, we have them in Colorado, we have them in Arizona, and Texas. And then here in Alberta and Saskatchewan, they're all connected because the COVID crimes tie them all together. And what we need to do now is to get the people to pressure them to do their job, because unless the government has a healthy fear of disappointing the people, then they're not going to do anything. They need to change the way the winds blow, right? That's really all there is to it.
That's right. And that's the grassroots wind power. That's what I refer to it as. That is precisely right. We have to come together. And now, like I said, we've eliminated all the obstacles. It used to be kind of a difficult thing. You had to Google and find an email for each representative, oh, that took so much time, but and honestly, there is also something to be said about when we need to talk to our friends and family, because ask them, have you ever made a phone call to your local rep, city council, mayor, supervisor, legislator?
Most people don't.
Senator, and they'll say no. And so you have to handhold them. It's okay. That is the most radical thing they will have ever done in their life. Help them get past that hurdle together. Hey, let's do a phone bank, family. Everybody get their phones out because y'all have them now. Let's go here. Have a QR code. We're all in here. We're going to do this together. Send the email, click, make a phone call, break the ice, and then they're over it. Then they're going to be empowered. They're going to start getting emails, real emails from their representatives saying, they might not give you the answer that you want to hear. They might give you a form letter, but you're being heard for the first time. People don't do this piece, and there is some intimidation factor. And honestly, under the Biden administration, I could see there was a lot of fear over reprisal, afraid to even email a Democrat because they're going to get on some database and on some FBI watch list. You had your parental rights dads outraged righteously at school board meetings, being arrested for how dare they complain that their daughter's been arrested by a trans male that entered the girls' bathroom, right? So there's a fear factor that happened. We are now protected confidently now we have zero excuse to do this. There was a fear factor with Tina Peters because of what they were doing to election fraud, election deniers, as they call us. We
Yes.
call them election fraud deniers.
Yes.
And folks, when Dale mentioned that this wasn't read at the legislature, that the petition for grievance wasn't read, this is true about the election fraud cases that have been brought. They'll say, oh, well, there was never any election fraud cases that were won, right? The 2020. Well, no, the judges threw out evidence, would not hear evidence, kept records sealed in the case of Dominion.
Yep.
One major case I had written down just to remind myself, where we knew that Dominion had a glitch, which is, see, we got to use the proper language. It wasn't fraud or election switching. It was just a glitch, switching votes. and you know, I mean, they changed the language like everything. So they flipped votes from red to blue, but that was a glitch, not election fraud. Okay. And there's Lansing, Michigan, Spalding County, Georgia was a big one. There were a number of almost a dozen software updates required from that lawsuit, but more than that were maintained. That they sealed that, and not even the cybersecurity infrastructure, not even CISA allowed some of those glitches to be publicly made known to states. So they're half of it we know, half of it we don't know in just one case. So there are a lot of cases. There's a lot of evidence.
We just have to take a short commercial break. I need to hear from the pillow man. Hey.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the next generation of energy drinks, Rev 7. It has no sugar and no caffeine. Instead, Rev 7 uses Go BHB. Go BHB is one of the body's primary ketones, and it provides the most efficient and clean fuel that your body needs. It also helps you stay energized all day with no crashes. Not only that, it produces 3 times more brain energy than sugar, which helps boost your memory, focus, and mental sharpness. It also helps reduce stress and helps balance your mood. Rev 7 does all that while being the best tasting energy drink ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% today. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, you get our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. I drink Rev 7 every day, and I absolutely love it, and so will you.
All right. So if anybody needs any of the MyPillow products, you can go to mypillow.com/Karis or call 800-845-2942. Use the promo code Karis. They got lots of good stuff at MyPillow, or you can find ways to support. You look in the ticker, you'll see multiple ways to support her. If you're watching on Facebook, Rumble, or BitChute, you'll see the links in the description, or you can go to all my links / the Karis Project. All right. Sorry. Back to what you were saying here about what was going on with the elections there.
Okay, so the fraud, the glitches, the things that we're dealing with Tina Peters. And by the way, for those that aren't totally in the loop or haven't, I'm shocked at some people that are following Tina Peters' case, but don't know about selectioncode.com and the documentary that was put out. Anybody that sees selectioncode.com, the video, will be so outraged and will definitely be acting. I mean, have a movie night with your family and friends, or a movie and a barbecue in your backyard, because the weather's gorgeous now, to really get our heads around what's going on with Tina Peters, Gold Star mom. It's really horrifying to think that this isn't even anything comparable to J6 in that this isn't walking into the Capitol building or any of the controversy that they try to surround our J6 victims with. This is somebody that was doing their job, took their oath seriously, and stumbled across a number of things that are shocking. We should all be horrified. And I want to stress something, because I know that Lindell has been advocating to ban the voting machines. We've got, I think, millions of people that want to do away with voting machines. And the selection code was certainly something that emphasized the urgency behind it. I work with retirees that worked for the Pentagon, original members that formed the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Department, that ran elections in foreign nations, experts in their field that understand the forensic side of this. When it comes to voting machines, this is nonsense even about being connected to Wi-Fi. If you have a computer plugged into a wall, you can have foreign hacking remotely, obviously in person, but remotely from anywhere in the world. They can access those voting machines and undetectably change the outcome of elections, period. You don't need a bad actor, which we shouldn't be trusting anyway, in one of these polling locations, sticking a USB key into a machine, or some nefarious capabilities. They forgot to rip the Wi-Fi capability out. That's all nonsense. A power cord plugged into a wall means that machine can be hacked. At the state level, we have numerous cases. Alaska was a big one where I think Russia was a foreign entity, hacked into the state system and accessed their election systems and their numbers, their data through their state website. That's another vulnerability. We cannot conduct elections on machines, period. Tina is being persecuted because we have allowed as a government, as a republic, to be deceived for decades that voting machines can be secure. It's nonsense. So just on that basis, regardless of her findings, this is criminal what they're doing to her. But to emphasize it further, there's not one European country that is conducting their elections. Not one Western nation is conducting elections on electronic voting machines. They conduct hand count, paper ballot elections, and they deliver results the next morning. And those elections are certified usually within a week's time. So we can't figure it out in states, France, Germany. Each of these states, no matter what the population is not the size of these countries that are doing this. And they vote. Remember when we used to have to show up at one specific designated polling location because you're voting in your precinct where everybody working there knows their neighbors. There's no, you showed your driver's license. All of these little things that we've done, have done nothing but leave us wide open to fraud and make it impossible to know who is voting, how they're voting, and we have no election integrity. If there's one breach in our security, whether it's chain of custody, anything, you have no security. It's like a hole in the wall, a hole in the fence. It's scriptural when you think about, I looked for someone to stand in the gap and I found none. If you have a breach, the whole thing can't be trusted. And that's what we're dealing with, folks.
Yeah.
We have elections we can have zero confidence in. So yes, we need to defend Tina. And it's also on the basis of recognizing that what she discovered and was an amazing, brave, courageous whistleblower. I guarantee there's a lot of other folks out there that came across this stuff.
Yes.
And they didn't say anything because they were terrified. It's like,
they were afraid.
It's like the joke now. Yeah. We all get on and we make a recording and say, I am not suicidal. There's a reason that they didn't come forward. They're terrified.
Yes, but this is
your lives are a testimony of what can happen, but you guys are being courageous. We serve a mighty God. If something happens to us, we're accountable to God to speak the truth. And we understand that we can't be silent. Just like for Zion's sake, we cannot be silent. There are things that we see where our neighbors, which is everyone around us, our family and friend, we're being robbed, right? We're being abused. Our freedoms are being trampled upon. I think we have like 28 million actions just on vaccine. No mandates, no lockdowns, no masks, no vaccines. We've been fighting this stuff together, all of us, but we need to fight in lockstep like the left. We need to lock shields now
Yes.
and do the action piece on every single thing, right?
This is why the petitions that we put together are powerful, because COVID either started everybody's problems or they made it worse. And
Yep.
and so we're all victim of that crime. And that petition, it just starts, it's just very plain, and it talks about the COVID. The brief then begins to explain how people were affected in that manner. And COVID was used specifically to commit election fraud on a massive scale that would not have
100%.
been possible if
Yep.
they didn't do this, because they justified all these mail-in ballots, all these unconstitutional changes, and all these things counted for days, weeks, and they're still doing it now where there's nothing there. But this is where that root problem is. And if all of the people tied together under that, they go after every single person, because you got corruption in the courts, in the family courts, the civil courts, the criminal courts, and this all got worse because of COVID. Judges were just going off kilter, and now you're seeing judges that they should be arrested because that judicial immunity shouldn't exist. That judge,
Right.
when I watched the judge sentence Tina Peters, I had to go and pray, because
I know.
that was wickedness to no end.
I
And
was shocked. Yeah, you're shocked. You're shocked to the core. And
It
there's
is
that
shock.
hunger
It's
for it.
shock.
My people cry out for justice, and they find none. It's you're living through that. And it's for somebody you care about and love, that's acting in a righteous way, right? And you just see it. It's horrifying. Now, it's important for people to also realize that, to your point about COVID, there isn't like a complete cabal that connects all, there's a lot of different sources that want to think that everybody's connected to this evil conspiracy, but they are connected in the ideology piece. And you do have activist judges legislating at the benches. You have all these people that are really part of, I emphasize this, they are democratic socialists. And even the Democrats themselves in Congress, they aren't registered necessarily as democratic socialists. But if you look at every single platform for them, they left the Democrat Party long ago. That party does not exist, has not existed. They are radical, and this is important. Democratic socialists believe in transforming our representative republic into an entirely different form of government. They want to replace our government. That is true for SCOTUS Justice Jackson. That is true for these activist judges. If they are progressive Democrats, that's what their goal is. So when COVID hit, there were certainly those conspirators at the top that saw this as a beautiful opportunity to exploit against the people, to lock us down and change through a pandemic the methods of our elections, in a lot of cases and battleground cases, totally lawlessly.
yes,
They suspended their methods of voting. They expanded and allowed full mail in. And by the way, those states that, even in red states that rolled out that mail-in ballot method, they have not fully rolled that back. So we still have a more corrupt, more open to fraud system because of COVID there. That's when the drop boxes got expanded without supervision, without cameras. That's when the Zuckerbucks private funding came into play. Zuckerbucks team was rewriting methods for their elections under pandemic rules, which, Wisconsin was one of the worst cases we saw, because we had a federal judge do the investigation. But people don't realize is that the results of that Wisconsin, what happened in there, happened in all the battleground states. So, they completely overran our elections. They ran off with it. Now we've reversed that private funding that was expanded, but only in 17 states. There's still so much work to do that we need help with, folks, when it comes to that, to the ballot harvesting and trafficking, and now tourism. 22% of voters polled that they voted at least twice. 17, I think, percent confessed to voting 3 times. So they're voting in multiple states because we had a miserable system set up for that. They're doing what's called voter tourism.
What like touching on what you said about the coordination, and I've said this for a long time, that this is necessary. The amount of people that are actually doing this is not a substantial amount of people. It's not. They're very effective at communication and getting things done. But if people, you don't need everybody to go into election fraud. You don't need everybody to go in ballot harvesting. You don't need everybody to go in to do the stuff in the schools. But you need some people to do
Exactly.
something, because the
Yeah.
more people get involved, they have to spread themselves thin. They don't have enough resources to go after everybody at the same time. People are like, oh, well, I'm afraid.
Right.
I'm like, no, think about D-Day on Normandy. They had the Canadians, they had the Americans, and they had the British. We had to storm the beaches. Well, they had a lot of people waiting for us, but what do we have to do? We had to overwhelm them. We had to basically send wave after wave after wave and wave until we got the beach, and then it turned the tide of the war. And this is basically that same mentality, is that we need to get the people, and as the people are directed at the different points, we have a common point that ties everybody together. So when you're going after them, we're all going after the same people. And what ended up happening is like you're creating a gigantic dragnet. You just catch them all, and then you just throw out the rubbish and keep the good stuff. And that's really
Yeah.
what needs to be done. That's it.
And that's right. You know, we think of ourselves as the artillery, to your illustration on D-Day. The grassroots, you can be a long haul trucker. You can be a daycare, provider. You can be a janitor. You can work the night shift. It doesn't matter where you are in life, what your work schedule. Everyone takes a coffee break. So now I don't want to hear even you hear armchair activist or a kitchen table activist, coffee break. And we all have to take a little break. And you can give that 30 seconds to a minute, all of us, to do that one piece. And it's really the most important piece, because you do have some people that are exhausted, but they're willing to show up. But we provide them the firepower they need to be heard, and they're no longer speaking for themselves. I get really frustrated and heartbroken when I see, especially at the local level, 3 or 4 people, they'll show up every other week to a school board meeting or a city council meeting or the supervisor meeting. And they're trying to fight, but it's like, we have this one gal in San Diego. Hey, it's me again. I'm back. I'm going to talk to this issue. I'm not going away, but she's just one voice. But the moment we all work together and do the little piece, she's no longer one voice. She is the representative of the people. She's the face to the movement that is behind her. Now she's 100,000 people, 200,000, whatever it needs to be. We've got to stop allowing these lone soldiers to be out there crying out in the wilderness alone. And so, not all of us are cut out for interfacing and sitting in for 2 hours. Usually these meetings are a 2-hour commitment, right? On average. You get off easy at a 2-hour mark, right? And they're there, but how about we all help each other with this? At the Hill level, getting the Trump's nominees confirmed early on, we ended up being the battering ram and we had our insiders. They allowed us to know who the resistors were. We know who our resistors are in Colorado, right? Same type of situation. A campaign is a campaign. Doesn't matter what your issue is. It's executed the same way, and it gets easier and easier every time you do it. But if it wasn't for Act for America's grassroots hammering away at those resistors, we wouldn't have seen the nominees confirmed the way they were. They were going to try to hold out on a few of our, Kash Patel, some of the big ones.
Yes.
Tulsi Gabbard, all of those, they would not have been confirmed without grassroots.
Yes.
Period.
All right, we're running up on time here, and so we want you to kind of tell people how to reach you. And I'd like to talk to you after this, because I've got some ideas here, because there's a lot of things that need to be done. and the grassroots needs to be organized and coordinated, because that's the thing that's been killing us, is that we have been going very disorganized. And if you go one by one, they can pick you off. We need more men
Exactly.
to come
We
in as
protect
well.
each other. Yes. Circle the wagons, I call it. You protect each other through those numbers. So you're not
Yes.
worried about being arrested when you show up at the,
Yes.
you know, this is nonsense. It all goes away when we, the people, come together in numbers.
Yes. So how can people help you before you close? What can they do to reach out?
First thing you need to do is go to actforamerica.org and you get involved and you do receive email alerts. It's important because you need to put in your whole address. That way, when we're coordinating on new projects, whether it's at the super local city level, county, state, federal, then when we send out a push to our members in those areas for district or area specific campaigns, you will receive our email alerts. Okay. We do content, but it takes you 2 to 3 minutes to read daily. So don't fear getting flooded. You're getting only the important facts, and you're usually given a grassroots tool, a campaign tool to click, so that we create synergy of effort, and we're all, you know that there's millions of people clicking with you, but we need more numbers. We shouldn't be a 5 million army. We should be a Trump army. We should be 80 million of us doing this piece. If we do this piece, we take back our country. We get rid of these rogue judges, and we pave the way. We remove every barrier with state legislatures. You no longer have these trifectas in deep blue states ruling over the people, defying the people, pretending that they're not hearing our complaints. You take back your local levels all the way up to the federal level through numbers. So join us there at Act for America with Tina Peters. Again, those in Colorado right now, I'll probably open this up for outsiders, but I want to give Colorado a shot at this first, where you're going to go to Act Now, actforamerica.org, Act Now states, go to Colorado, select your state. It'll be the first campaign there, free Tina Peters. You need to click on that and take your half a minute to make your voice heard and help us get this ball rolling with them and start those conversations. And for those that are in the front lines, you can join the movement and be a leader, and we can, get coaching and mentoring through our membership. We're happy to have you. We have about 1,200 chapters, but we need more of you. And every like-minded group can be affiliated. You can initiate campaigns locally and start coordinating with us. If we're not doing something locally on an issue you care about, simply because we're not talking, we haven't heard from you, and we need to all become one big, beautiful, MAGA Maha family together.
All right. Speaking my language, getting rid of corrupt judges and corruption, I'm all for that. And so people check it out. Hear what she has to say. This is something that needs to be done. A representative form of government means the power comes from the people. Go back and read the Declaration of Independence, and it lays this out for you. As Americans, this goes for anybody else, because anywhere where you have a free government, the power comes from the people, and that's just the way it works. And so we have to make sure that they understand that they have denied our will and that we need to have our will done. So I'm going to close here with a prayer, and then I'll give my daughter her final thoughts, and then we'll touch base on the back end. All right. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your love, your grace, your mercy. We thank you for the hope that you have given us this day. And Father, I ask of you this day for the men and the women to come together and humble themselves before God, and have the men lead their families and rebuild their families, their churches, their community, and their nation, that we can have some protection for the children, and that we can have some law and order until the work is done and we see you coming in the clouds, is my prayer. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Dad, for the prayer as always. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We're very happy to have you on, Christine. We'll have to have you on in the future for some updates. Guys, I want you to go out and support what she's doing, because Tina Peters needs to be freed from this situation. This is so genuinely evil. If you go and look into what was gone on there, she done nothing wrong. She was doing her job. She's a patriot. She's a Gold Star mom. She lost her family a lot. Like, she lost her husband during this process, and she's rotting away in a prison. She's could be your grandmother. She's up in age. She's a beautiful woman. She's young, like she's strong, but think about your grandmother sitting away rotting in a prison and doesn't deserve to be there. That's what I think every time, because I have a grandmother still, and it just really breaks my heart that she's in this position, and we need to support the people that are doing what's right for our freedom. So guys, please take that into consideration. Thank you guys for listening. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you in the next one. And to my dearest Karis, until we meet again, my friend, and we will ciao.